YouTube, how's it going? My name is C Toretto. Today we are doing a subscriber requested video. I get quite a few messages from people on Forza asking me how to drift, and I wanted to cover that in today's video, but because there's so many aspects to drifting and everybody's got their own style, I don't want to just sit here and preach to you how you should be drifting, so I thought I'd base the video around one common problem which most people have when they're drifting, and that's how to stop spinning out during your drift. So I'm going to focus the video on that, and I'm going to share with you 3 tips that should hopefully help you out. So tip number 1, we're going to be looking at using your gearing to control your speed. Tip number 2, I have to be careful that I say tip there and not something else. Tip number 2, we're going to be looking at your entry, so how to set up your car for the corner. Not just ripping the e-brake, we're going to be using the oversteer of the car to help get us around the corner. Tip number 3, if everything else fails, then I'm going to show you guys some settings in the tuning details that are going to help reduce the oversteer on your car. For example, like that. That's exactly what we don't want to do. That was a spin out, so let's get into it. So tip number 1, we're going to take a look at our gears and using our gears to control speed. So if you drive an automatic, I'm sorry, you're going to have to change to manual to get the best results. Let's go and check out the tune. So we go over to my gearing tab. Now what I do for all my tunes, and these are all available on my storefront C Toretto, I move the speed to acceleration slider more towards acceleration, and then I fine tune my 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th gear by moving the ratios slightly closer together. So move 4th closer to 3rd, 5th closer to 4th, etc. And then there's about 0.3 space in between each, and that applies to this M4. And you can usually get away with it for most cars, but I know guys that run a lot shorter ratios. But you're basically looking to, as soon as you change gear, you want to maintain power. So if you change gear and the engine lags, like it goes dull, then you need to move that spacing closer together. So looking at this corner, we just took that in 3rd gear and then changed to 4th on the exit. But the idea is we want to be as in a lower gear as possible, and that's going to help control the spin on those rear wheels. So we don't want to overspin it. If we're in 4th and we full throttle, it's going to send too much power to the back, which will then send us into a spin. So if we're controlling it in 3rd, it's limiting the power, we're maxing out the rev limiter, and we get a nice controlled drift. Let's take a look at another example. I'm going to go in the other direction, and we'll try this corner up here. I'm going to put it in 3rd again just to begin with, because I'm not sure what gear I should be in. But 3rd, the BMW got on the way, damn it, Beamer. We'll spin it around and we'll try it again. So again, this gearing, it's limiting the power to the back wheel, and it's allowing us to be controlled. So handbrake, full lock, full power, and it's controlled. There was no danger of spinning out. Let's continue the course a little bit. So sticking in one gear isn't going to get you very far. You are going to have to shift up and down. Shifting up on your exits to get more speed and hold that drift right through to the next corner. So it's good for chaining your drifts together. So what I'm doing on most of these corners, I'm entering in 3rd and then shifting to 4th and then powering through to then connect to my next corner.
Let's look again in slow
motion. I'm not really talking in slow motion, but right here I entered in 3rd, I got to the angle that I'm happy with, and as soon as I'm happy with that angle I'm going to shift to 4th, full lock, counter steer and acceleration, and that should get us to hold a good looking drift and get us the speed we need to connect. So again, now I'm going to my next corner, I'm in 3rd, as soon as I get to my angle that I'm happy with, I'm going to shift it into 4th and then power through again. Okay, so it turns out I had way too much speed for that corner, so I kept it in 3rd. Now I'm going to oversteer this and we're going to wreck it into the wall, and I made a mistake there. Let's look at the mistake really fast. I'm talking really fast. Right, so this wasn't really a gearing issue, it was the fact that I held my handbrake for too long and I clutch kicked way too late. I probably should have been in 2nd and then exited on 3rd, but we're going to move on to point 2 and take a look at your car's position on your entry, so how you should be entering a corner, and also your handbraking and your clutching. Point number 2, the entry. Guide it, don't force it. I'm sure there's some innuendo in that somewhere. hopefully we've all made it through point 1 and we're on to point 2. I feel like this video has been very serious. I'm just trying to be clear and get to the point just to help you guys as fast as possible, albeit in a very dull and direct manner. Point number 2. Place your car on the right side of the road, handbrake and clutch, and then reverse through. I could do it like that, maybe that's more suitable. Anyway, point 2, the entry. So you want to hit the outside on your entry, generally cut across the centre, and then hit the outside again on your exit. Now this is my preferred style. Some guys might like to take the outside line, which is cool. I do that as well on some corners, but I generally like to drift fast. So I take the racing line, so outside, inside, outside is basically the racing line. Now I'm going to mess up this corner on purpose, just to show you guys what I did wrong, and I basically started the drift too soon. So I went outside too early, didn't leave myself enough space on the inside, got way too close to that corner, and then left myself no space to exit, and we ended up wrapping ourselves around that tree. Taking a look at a better example, I enter a lot later and leave myself enough space and try and navigate between the cars. So also during the entry, I hold my clutch and I tap the handbrake and the brake for like a split second. And what that's going to do, it's going to throw the weight from the back of the car to the front, and it's going to allow you to transition quite fast. Now, this only really applies to shorter corners where you're trying to chain drifts together. If you're on a longer corner, you generally don't want to use the brake, you just want to power over because you don't want to lose any momentum. Can we hit the bins? Yes, just tapped it. We knocked them all over onto the pavement and we got the trash man skill. I am the trash man. I think I just realised before when I did that voice, I sounded a little bit like a sat nav. Proceed on to Surfer's Paradise Way. At the next exit, take the right. So a quick recap on point 2, it's all about using the whole width of the road or as much space that you've got, and you only want to be using that handbrake and brakes just to initiate the drift. You don't want to be forcing the car into a sharp angle using the handbrake. You want the power from the rear wheels to guide it into that angle, and then counter steer and then full throttle to keep it going. We'll head down to the parking lot for point number 3 and I'll show you guys some of the tuning settings that you can change that are going to help reduce the understeer. Just did a suicide 360 there, luckily only took out one lamppost. I love just going fast and just chucking the car into a corner and hoping for the best. It's quite a lot of fun. Turning up at the parking lot, nobody's here, but then I just realised I'm in a private session. Doing the figure of 8 straight in as a warm-up. Luckily we managed it. We didn't spin out, so hopefully my advice is pretty sound. So tip number 3 guys, the last hope in trying to help you not spin out. I'm going to spin this wheel spin. I don't want to not spin out on these. I can spin these all day. 100,000, yes. I didn't want the Bowler, I'm glad I didn't get that. So the tuning settings, we're going to take a look at some of the areas that you can change that's going to help you add grip to the rear of the car. So that's what we want to do to help us stop overspinning. So one of the first things is your toe. So rear toe, you can take that down to toe in to about -1 degree, and that's going to help your rear of the car be a little bit more stable. On anti-roll bars, notice how my front's stiffer than the rear. So if you've got a stiff setup at the front, it makes less grip at the front, which is what we want. And if you're struggling by spinning out, if you soften the rear, it's going to add grip to the rear. So soft is grip and stiff is no grip, basically. So we'll do that for the springs as well. I run a really stiff spring setup on the parking lot because there's no bumps, but if I'm overspinning, I'll soften the rear. And finally, the ride height, I raise the rear, and that's going to make it harder to shift that weight from the rear to the front of the car. Now damping, it's the opposite way around. So if you want to add grip at the rear, then you make the front stiff, and that's on both rebound stiffness and bump stiffness. Aero brake, I have more towards the front, so the weight transfers quicker. So if your weight's transferring too fast, then move it over to the rear. But I'm really happy with this M4 tune, so I'm going to leave all my settings as they were. So I jumped online, shout out to Claiborne ahead in the GTR, and I'm really annoyed that I've only just started recording. We've been getting some really close door-to-door action on this figure of 8 track. So we checked out all 3 tips that I had for you guys on how to stop spinning out. Now there is so much more that I want to tell you, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a part 2 to this video, and in part 2 we're going to cover things like how to adjust when you're drifting. So if you go on a corner in a drift and there's a car there, how do you adjust and maintain your drift? So we'll look at that. Secondly, we will take a look at a different style of entry, which is going to be using the Scandinavian flick. Now, if you guys are a long-term subscriber to the channel, I know I've only been going for like a year, but I did a Scandinavian flick tutorial in Need for Speed, which was my first game. The drifting in Need for Speed wasn't as easy as Forza Horizon 3, you kind of had to force it, but I still had a lot of fun in that game. I am thinking of checking out Grand Theft Auto 5 in the drifting in that. I was watching a guy's channel yesterday called Rear Wheel Drive Media, and he basically does what I do but for GTA, and it looks pretty cool, so I actually might try GTA drifting. If you guys have tried it, let me know down in the comments section. But part 2 of my How to Drift for Forza will be coming very soon, so if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. We're also returning to the Drift Challenge series. We're on number 5, something to do with the drift zones. I'm really excited for that challenge. Something else that's going on, Turbo Slider, the guy that does all the accurate Too Fast Too Furious paints, well, the whole Fast and Furious franchise, he is doing me a custom Citaretto paint job, which I can't wait to show you guys. So a lot of stuff coming up on the channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Peace out.